Good afternoon. I'm down on the sofas at Orangefield Presbyterian Church, and I've got a businessman, Belfast businessman Stephen Douglas, in front of me, and he has kindly agreed to do one of my interviews for my wee channel. Stephen, you have been out to India quite a number of times now. Would that be correct? How many times?
I can't put an exact number on it. Probably 15 or more.
Right.
Over the last 10 years.
Right. Okay. And this is all connected with your work.
Yes, I'm an architect working in East Belfast.
Right.
And about 10 years ago, when the recession happened, we were thinking how we would cope with that,
Right.
having to lay staff off and
Right.
so on for the first time in a very long time.
Right.
And we were being encouraged to think about exporting professional services by Invest NI.
Right.
We didn't think there was any opportunity for that, but we coincidentally met a couple of young Indian architects who were training postgrad work in UK, going back to set up their own family business.
Right.
And so we met them and liked them and set up a relationship, and with Invest NI's help started to travel to India looking for architectural work there.
Right. So this connection with India and your travels to India has lasted over 10 years.
Yes, it's about that. Less so in the last couple of years. The work has tailed off a bit.
Right. How, on each trip, we're talking about a trip, what are we talking about, 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Typically we were going for sort of 10 days. When you work fairly intensively, it's quite draining. You tend to work very long days and pack as much in as possible.
Right.
And getting time away from the local office is difficult. So we sort of got into a routine of doing a long working week, which
Right.
in their culture includes Saturdays.
Right.
So usually about 10 days at a time.
Right, okay. Now, in your frequent trips to India, and I believe it's centred around Mumbai.
Yes, it's principally Mumbai. We've been visiting. The local architects we're working with are based in a city called Pune, which I confess I hadn't heard of until we started travelling. It's about 4 hours driving from Mumbai up in the hills, and it's a city of maybe 4 million people.
It's just a small city there.
Just a small city. It's the Oxford and Cambridge of India. It's full of colleges.
Right.
So there are vast numbers of students running about on mopeds and bikes.
Right.
And where a lot of the IT training in India stems from.
Right, okay. And Mumbai, of course, it would have been known to us older buddies as Bombay, and it's on the west coast.
It's on the west coast facing the Indian Ocean, and it's a sprawling city of, I don't know the exact figure, but it's larger than London. It's
right. So we're talking 20 million here.
We're talking that sort of order.
A huge number of
vast
people.
City that takes hours to drive out.
Right, hours to drive out of. My goodness. Right. Okay. Now, in your time, your visits, you've developed a strong connection with. What is the local charity, a Mumbai charity, principally called IMCARES?
IMCARES.
Right.
It's a small independent charity set up by a group of people about 30 years ago. A local minister working with a couple of European people who were interested in supporting a work on the streets, working with the poorest of the poor from a Christian context, principally from Germany initially and England. And so this is a small mission which maybe 20 staff, some volunteers, working on the streets of Mumbai. Mm-hmm. They've developed a number of different areas of work which have evolved and adapted over the years according to the needs. So initially, they were the first people in Mumbai to be running an AIDS program of education and treatment.
Right.
Now the government has sort of taken that over in India on a national level.
Right.
So the mission has moved on to issues surrounding mental and physical disability in families of very low income.
Right.
So that's one aspect of the ministry. They run a day centre empowering women to run their own business, to look after their families. They run children's programs. They run nutrition programs.
Right. This is quite a wide brief.
It is, but it's governed by what they're capable of doing, because finance and personnel are limited. And so it's really what they believe God has put in front of them as the needs. They run a small children's home, coincidentally up near Pune in a village, where children who are orphaned or whose parents are not capable of looking after them, let them be brought up in the context of house parents, and education and nutrition's provided, and there's been generations of young people have grown up through the children's home.
Right.
The other aspect of work they do is literally on the streets, where they will go out of an evening and walk the streets of Mumbai, finding people who are absolutely destitute, frequently very ill, sometimes on the verge of dying.
Right.
And they'll clean them up, and they'll care for them, and they'll provide first aid and food and advice, and sometimes accompany them to hospital. Frequently in those occasions, what's required is that the mission advocate on behalf of these people who have no ability to access the services that the state should provide, but they're in such bad circumstances that they need someone to stand with them and plead their case.
Right.
So whether that involves legal issues or healthcare issues, or whether it simply involves organising a funeral for someone that passes away. And so it's a very raw, it's a very immediate, it's a very hands-on sort of work.
Right. Now, you're actually encouraging, and in fact you're doing more than encouraging. You're leading up a team from Orangefield Presbyterian Church. How many are going with you?
There are 6 of us, including me, so there are 5 others and myself.
So 5 others and yourself, and you're leading this team, and you're heading to Mumbai with them in February, a matter of a month away, and you're going to see round or show them round the charity work going on there. Now, thinking back to the first time that you arrived at Mumbai, you know, what are these people in for as regards culture, climate, food?
They're in for a shock to the system.
Right.
It's a bit of an assault on all your senses. The first thing is the smell of damp in an airport. It's the smell. It's the humidity and heat when you walk out through the doors.
That would be a major issue.
Even if it's 11 o'clock at night.
Right. What kind of temperatures are you talking about here?
You're talking maybe 35, 36, 37 degrees, but it's very high humidity, and it's just as warm and humid at night as it is during the day.
Oh my! So sleeping will be an issue.
It is if you can't get aircon. Yes.
Right.
So there's that. There's the smells. There's the food. There's the traffic, the noise, the sheer numbers of people. And also the clash of extreme wealth sitting next door to extreme poverty. The real estate, the property in Mumbai at its peak is more expensive than Manhattan.
My goodness.
But there will be people literally living with no cover on the street outside the door of those properties.
Right, right.
When the monsoon arrives, as it does in June every year, the streets are awash.
So any ramshackle hut or that these poor folk have will be washed away.
Yeah, yeah. So all of that's a shock. The filth, the dirt, the lack of hygiene is in the countryside as well as the city.
Right.
And that's probably the hardest thing to come to terms with.
Right, right. What about the people themselves? How do you find them, or how did...
The people are lovely.
Right.
There's a great contrast between those that can speak English and those that can't. So you'll find that the average Indian learns their local regional dialect,
right,
which in Maharashtra, which is the county or state of Mumbai, would be Marathi. Then they would learn Hindi,
right,
and then if they go to a school that maybe was set up by Victorian missionaries, they would learn English.
right.
So some are taught in English and some are taught in Hindi.
Right.
But before they get to English, they'll have 2 other languages under their belt.
Oh my goodness.
So communication is a problem. If our ability to speak anything other than English is pretty limited. So there'll be interpreters perhaps involved. I should say that our involvement started through my daughter was doing postgraduate studies in slum development at the time, and she, knowing that I was travelling to India, she was interested, could I make introductions to academics, to developers, to planners,
right,
as she studied the issues of slums, particularly in Mumbai. And it was through the Tear Fund in Belfast put us in contact with this mission to start with, and particularly with its director, Timothy Gaukwad. Timothy is the son of the pastor that set the mission up.
Right.
And when his father came to retirement age, Timothy left his career to take over the running of the mission with his wife. Timothy not only facilitated my daughter, but likes a good cup of coffee, and
right,
we became friends. And thereafter, on every visit, I would call with Timothy.
right,
And that's how we got to know of the work of the mission.
right.
Timothy is a musician, he's a filmmaker, he's a very talented guy,
Right.
and has been involved not only with Tear Fund in the past, but with campaigning on issues in India,
Right.
issues like trafficking, women's rights, working with women in the red light districts.
Yes, yes.
So he's been able to use his artistic skills
Yes.
to get involved in some of the politics, and has even spoken in the Houses of Parliament in London,
Right.
on issues of third world development.
Right.
So Timothy, through my encouragement on one of his trips to England, his sister lives in Ipswich, travelled over and spoke in Orangefield. And our church began to, in a small way, financially help in some of the work of the mission.
Right.
And so, as we were thinking how could that relationship develop, the next logical step seemed to be to take a group of
out.
interested people out.
Right.
And so there are a significant number of folk in Orangefield have contributed, have expressed interest, have considered travelling. Maybe all sorts of issues like health are preventing them, but they're engaged with the work. And I think Timothy, when he was here, won a lot of hearts and minds simply with the passion and reality of who he was
Right.
and how he expressed himself. And I think in these days of global mission, we've as much to learn as we have to help.
Yes.
And I think the contrast between our conditions here and their conditions there were such that a number of people have been moved to say, well, what can we do to help?
Right.
Because our our belief and our theology would say that we're all created equal in God's eyes, and if there's inequality in our circumstances simply by circumstance and where we're born, that it's a responsibility for us to help and to share the resources we've been blessed with.
Give other folks a helping hand up. Right.
So the trip is really not to do anything except to say we're interested, we want to encourage you, we want to come alongside you, and I suppose to take time and care to find out what the needs are and how we can help, rather than to go with our preconceived ideas of how we might tell them a better way to do.
Yes, what to do.
It's to get alongside them and hopefully come back with more understanding and information about how we can encourage our church to get behind these people.
And the trip is 10 days a week, or?
The trip is 2 weekends and the week in between. So the idea of that is the travelling takes about 24 hours. We're hoping to spend a weekend at their children's home,
right,
and to be involved with Sunday worship with them. Then to travel back down to Mumbai and spend 4 or 5 days working with their staff, going out to see the various programs that they're running.
Right.
And then the last weekend do a little sightseeing in Mumbai and probably be involved in their church services, right, in Mumbai, central Mumbai, before we travel home. Right. So it sort of takes in 2 Sundays and the
right,
week in between.
Right, okay. Will you be on Facebook and Twitter? And
we're investigating that at the minute. We'll certainly be trying to keep our own folks up to date.
Yes.
And I think probably the best way to do that is we're investigate setting up a blog.
Right.
That enables us not to bombard people who aren't interested with too much information. So right, you sign up or you right, go to visit a blog, yeah, and that means that we can advertise that, so that those who are interested can not only find out what we're doing before we go, but see on a daily basis when we're there what we're at.
Exactly.
And that we can follow up with when we come back. So I haven't the exact address to give you.
I know.
Maybe by the time you put this out, we'll be able to attach
so
that.
I can update this, no problem. Listen, Stephen, that's marvellous. Thank you so much for taking time out to do this interview, and Godspeed.
Thank you.